Honoring a visiting nurse, working remotely is actually better, and we learn about socialism today on Good Work.
Hello, workers of the world, and welcome to Good Work, a roundtable discussion about the world of working. Working is a major part of our lives, so we should talk about it. I'm James Mastriani.
I'm Matt Newell.
And I'm Jake Lloyd Bacon, and we are not all in studio at the same place. We're doing our first remote Good Work.
First time.
Because somebody's a risk.
That's right.
We need to protect ourselves from James Mastriani.
Yeah, you know, my girlfriend has COVID, and
just putting her on blast.
I know. And you know, it's a normal thing. A lot of people get it.
Yeah,
but
I think a lot. Yeah, how many? Like 100, couple hundred.
Couple hundred people got it over the last couple of years, and she's one of them. So. Yeah, we're not in studio. Feels a little bit unusual, but I'm still excited to be here.
Listen, we need to do good work regardless of people getting sick.
That's right.
That's right. And remote working's so popular right now. We're decided to try it out.
Yeah, we want to show solidarity.
Well, do you want to jump into the news?
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty. First story, we're starting with something positive here. Even though it's a misleading headline for nerds, this comes from the chief. The headline is Visiting Nurse Honored with MCU Hero Award. Does not stand for Marvel Cinematic Universe Hero Award. If it did, I'm not going to say that it would be better because it's still an honor, but it stands for the Municipal Credit Union Hero Award. Ruth Caballero, who has worked as a visiting nurse for 20 years and was working her ass off throughout the pandemic, essentially visiting people exclusively who had COVID. So for context, a visiting nurse is what it sounds like. It's a nurse who goes to people's homes. It's an at-home nurse, but someone who's on call. In the article here, she's quoted, I've always been interested in nursing. Even as a little girl, my grandparents would buy me stethoscopes, says Ruth Caballero, a visiting nurse who was honored by the Municipal Credit Union. After working at Brooklyn's Methodist Hospital, Caballero became interested in home care when she realized that patients who had home nurses didn't come back to the hospital. She began working as a visiting nurse service of New York nearly 2 decades ago and currently cares for medical surgery patients in Washington Heights. The neighborhood she services has a large low-income population as well as many immigrants, many of them who are underinsured or not insured at all whatsoever. She states here in the article, what stands out to me is the inequality of care. Caballero noted during a phone interview, when I go into a home, I thank the patient and I tell them that I'm there to help them get well. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're going to get the exact same quality of service. During the height of the pandemic in spring of 2020, Caballero, like I said, only worked with patients who had tested positive for the virus. So, you know, if your girlfriend needs any assistance, we know who to call, James.
Yeah, the woman who works in New York City.
This one was sort of heartbreaking. This quote. What was really challenging to me was that the patients were very sick, and they thought that the hospital had just sent them home to die. She said,
"Jesus,
I'm really happy to say that every one of my patients converted to negative, and she did not lose one patient." Even though her family worried that she would test positive for COVID, she stated, "This is why I'm in the field. We're nurses for the sick, not nurses for the well." So a nice honor there. This Municipal Credit Hero Award, which started in June of 2018, 4 years ago, if that's how math works.
Great.
You know, not.
I mean, it's also probably more exclusive than on an MCU. I think an MCU
Right.
award. Everyone in the world has been in a Marvel movie at this point.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I think we're the only three that haven't been in one. And maybe one day she'll make Employee of the Month here on the show.
So yeah, good on you, Ruth Caballero. And thanks for all the work. Not quite, not quite a good work employee of the month.
Not quite. No, you got to be an eagle or something.
Yeah, you got to be a falcon.
I got a little something here that I just wanted to point out. Somebody just, with all of this stuff coming out about student loan forgiveness and all that sort of stuff, and a major part of all of that is factored into the fact that everything over the last 40, 50 years has gotten more expensive while wages have actually gone down. And so somebody on Twitter put the differences in kind of like some different costs from 1968 to 2022 to give you an idea. So the average cost of a 4-year college tuition in 1968 was $1,200. In 2022, the average 4-year tuition is $45,000.
Jesus Christ.
From $1,200 to $45,000.
Now, but if you go to college now, you make so much money, so it works out. Isn't that how,
totally.
Isn't that how capitalism works? Like it costs you a lot.
Yeah, wages have grown that much in that period of time.
So what did they equate it to something?
No, they didn't. They just kind of like left it. So well, they also said, just to give an idea here of like the cost of other things in that period while wages have not gone up. The average hospital cost to have a baby in 1968, and one of the things that we've been told over the last several years is that America's population is declining. People aren't having children anymore. Here's one reason why. In 1968, out of pocket, a family would pay $407 to have a baby. In 2022, out of pocket, an average family will pay $32,000 to have a baby.
Wow.
To the hospital. And in 1968, the average house in 1968 was $24,700. In 2022, the average priced house in America is $345,000. And all of this is while wages have remained stagnant the entire time. So, if you're feeling stressed, you feel like you can't pay for anything or everything is super expensive, those are 3 things right there that have
this isn't technically inflation, because inflation would mean that it's fine that happened because our wages and income has grown equally.
Correct.
This is simply the world's worst late night infomercial VHS you can buy. Capitalism gone wild. Because it doesn't equate to, stuff gets more expensive as time goes on, because wages, you say, have stayed. I mean, they have gone up. They had to have gone up since the 60s, but not nearly to this percentage, not even remotely to this percentage.
They have not gone up relative to inflation and relative to the price of things. So basically, people who were workers were making more money in the economy in 1969 than they're making today, in comparison to their context. So obviously minimum wage is more and people were making more money, but
what's milk?
Milk is like a thing that comes from cows or sometimes goats.
Oh, okay, great. I just want to make sure I know what I'm drinking.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what's the cost of milk then versus now? I'm just curious about like products. I'm just
45 cents in 1968.
For how much? A gallon?
For a gallon.
45
cents. And today a gallon is average $4.34.
So what is that? Jake,
400%, 400%,
400%. That's what
something like that.
Let me look up inflation from 1968 to 2022.
I mean, again, though,
this is a great podcast where we just look up stuff.
$450. Hey, man, we're literally doing good work. We're working during the show.
Yeah.
But I mean, still though, like even that is not $450 to $30,000. Like the equivalent would be $450 to $4,500. That would be the same break of a 40.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Right. So you figure the difference is still absurdly off scale.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is absurd. It is so off scale. It's not even. I mean, like, price gouging and all of this. You keep adding costs to shit. I think it's so much of it. Yeah,
It's absurd.
I want to figure out.
Man.
I don't know how to do this in terms of figuring out. $1 in 1968. Okay, so $1.68 is $8.50 today, basically.
So there you go. 850% increase in the actual value of a dollar.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna take a gallpark. That's when like you take a guess, but you've got a lot of gall in doing it. A gallpark figure. That the increase that we just talked about of a home and childbirth in the thousands. Percentages.
Oh yeah,
in the thousands.
Oh yeah.
So
like from $400 to $32,000.
That's out of the goal park right there.
Yeah,
That is out.
And it's out of the goal park. back.
All right. Well, we went from a nice piece of news to a little bit of a depressing piece of news. I'm going to do somewhere in the middle here.
great.
But it also has to do with inflation. How about that? So this is headline: Remote work boosts productivity and helps fight inflation despite business leaders' doubts. So BlackRock CEO Larry Fink claimed in a recent interview with Fox Business Network anchor Liz Claman that we have to get our employees back in the office. He claimed that doing so would result in rising productivity that will offset some of the inflationary pressures. But he didn't provide any data for it. And there is actually been data to say the opposite. A widely cited July 2022 study from the highly respected National Bureau of Economic Research found strong evidence that remote work decreased inflation, namely because employees have a strong preference for mostly or full-time remote work. They are willing to accept lower wages to work remotely. As a result, the researchers found that remote work decreased wage growth by 2% over the last 2 years.
Right.
So it's actually saying that remote work is a good thing. And he also said that productivity is down. That was another thing this Fink claimed.
With no data to supervise.
With no data.
Yeah. Because I said so was his data.
Yes, because I said so. But then
a chart.
The surveys, yeah. I mean, this was Fox
That's
News,
funny.
so they don't really just,
It's say whatever. It's a pie chart, and then it's just 100% because I said so.
Yes.
Yeah. It's all there's just a little sliver that's just for I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
So surveys have long found that workers report being more productive working remotely, but we might feel some skepticism for self-reported answers. There's a company that monitored software called Protoscore. The company's president, David Powell, said that after evaluating over 105 million data points from 30,000 U.S.-based Protoscore users, we discovered a 5% increase in productivity during the pandemic, during the work from home. So this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Interesting. People don't work unless you put them in a precarious position and force them to. You know,
put them in a car for hours, and then in a weird office surrounded by people they don't want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, away from their familiar surroundings and their family and their pets.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be get way more work done and not.
Yeah,
I mean we talked about this months ago, maybe when we started talking about the surge in at home work, where it's like it also seems to just make so much more sense as a capitalist even. Because like if everybody's working at home, then that's just such a low overhead. There's so many bills that you now don't have to have for office space, for the utilities that come with it, for paying for internet for an office, paying you're actually giving a lot of your cost to your employees, and you then get to pay them a little less because you go, well, you don't have to come home, so you get to stay home, so we're going to offer you a little bit less money. Like even from a like vindictive, money hungry capitalist viewpoint. This seems to make so much more sense.
I don't care why you're kind. Or you know what I mean? Why
Sure.
you do the right thing for selfish reasons is fucking fine with me.
Right,
Just
yeah.
do the right thing.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
give a shit.
You saved my life when I was drowning in the lake because you wanted to get a picture of yourself doing something great. Well, fuck. I
Right.
don't.
Fuck yeah,
You know,
thank
I'm
you.
still
Yeah.
here. Thanks.
Well, it's also, you know, like there's a lot of I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with, I'm sure you are, or maybe not, Matt, because you're smart, you're not on social media, but it's this popular thing of people doing something kind for like an unhoused person and like putting it on TikTok, and people say like,
we talked about this.
all you're doing is exploiting people. Oh, did we talk about this already?
Because there's a guy who was like, someone who was, I forget where I heard this story from, but like somebody was feeding, passing out water bottles or something at a homeless encampment.
Right.
And somebody was like, do you want to take our picture now? Everyone who does this always wants a picture with us.
Oh, right,
And they were
right,
like, It's like, no.
Right.
Like,
But
it's just the saddest thing is
It is
that, but
it's
still, just
exploitative.
at least they're doing it.
Right. It's this is my argument. Whenever people are always like, oh, you know, you could have just done this without filming it and getting TikTok clout or getting Instagram clout or whatever. And I feel like I agree with those people, but also I would rather them do it and get the Instagram clout than not do it at all.
Yeah.
Oh, and if they're gonna do something,
Same.
I'd rather them do that than like lick a toilet or whatever the fuck
Sure.
that challenge was.
Or
Remember?
Yeah.
Remember that shit?
Or
Good
or
Lord.
or
Lick
a
a urinal or yeah.
trailer reactions.
Yeah.
yeah. Our trailer reactions are like, who gives it? Oh, Black Adam looks just as shitty as the
trailer
others.
Oh, yeah. I
Wait,
was
what
so
did you think?
confused.
Did you think I meant like where you'd film like
at a trailer park?
Yeah,
Ah.
trailer park as it
Yeah.
comes by, and then you react.
Ah.
Totally. Every time you drive by a trailer park, you
That was
film
a Jay Leno
yourself
bit.
reacting. Yeah.
That was a terrible.
I go to a trailer park and read headlines to.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna trailer react. Welcome to Toledo. Remind me. Did I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you
Look at
the
Jay
guys
Leno
that
taking strays in 2022. Good for him.
listen?
Still around, getting
That
catching strays.
that jerk tried to have me kicked off a show at the Comedy Magic Club because he didn't like how many swear words I used. It's a crutch. I think it's a crutch, and I don't think you need it. And I don't think it's good. Really
How
cool.
many did you use?
Great. Like 2? I don't know. I think it's because it was like a punchline. And like if you don't use it for the punchline, if you don't, sometimes you need the F-bomb to emphasize the joke. And and then I tried and I tried it without it, and it didn't get a laugh. And then afterwards I went, yeah, maybe I'll do what I want to do. Thanks, old man.
Yeah.
You know, these kids today, they don't respect their elders.
I mean, his chin is kind of a crutch because it's like, oh, you've got that funny chin.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and all those fucking cars, you maniac.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I got a little bit of Starbucks news here. We always gonna try to have Starbucks news every week.
Oh, yeah.
This week
That's
in the
the thing
Bucks.
we started.
Starbucks, the coal mines of the 21st century, baby.
So this is just more about how shitty they are. Starbucks fires activist barista for refusing to remove anti-suicide pin. So Starbucks is pro-suicide, everybody. You heard it here. Starbucks is pro-suicide.
Wait, what?
A Starbucks barista says he was fired for wearing a mental health awareness pin, a move the company's union claims is part of a purge of labor activists. The fired barista, Will Westlake, is also a prominent union organizer at one of the first 3 cafes around Buffalo, New York, that petitioned to form a union last year. Westlake said he and others at his store began wearing the pins after a coworker died by suicide earlier this year. So a Starbucks employee, after management told them the pins violated the dress code, most removed them to avoid getting in trouble, he said. Westlake continued wearing his, and he said management sent him home dozens of times and issued him a final written warning for refusing to remove it. This is Starbucks. You will remove the pin? And a termination notice issued Tuesday. Starbucks said it fired Westlake due to refusal to abide by the dress code policy, as well as attendance issues. Fucking bullshit. It's union busting.
Attendance issues.
Yeah. It totally
If a anti-union manager was wearing one of those pins, they wouldn't give a shit.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. For like, what's the fucking, they were looking for a reason to fire him. And they were like, oh, there it is. This guy is against suicide.
And one of their employees was the one who died by suicide.
Yeah. I mean, it's
wow. What a garbage company.
Yeah, that's real specific.
Petty.
That's a specific amount of garbage petty.
It also makes you go like, why don't we ever even talk about morality? Right? Like if like the ruling class in this society and country.
Why do we even ever talk about
I mean,
what what's the point?
What's the point if like the ruling class has no sort of moral compass, but then like is I guess like obviously morality is important. I guess the frustration for me is just kind of this thing where it's like, you know, morality is only a thing for one side. There is no moral compass, I feel like, or moral fiber that is necessary on the other side, the capitalist side. Yeah. I mean, it goes right back to what we've talked about in the past, like wage theft versus the other theft, right? It's like wage theft is like not real. I mean, it's illegal, but nobody gets punished for it.
Yeah.
But
jewel thieves are always getting thrown in the slammer.
Yeah. So what is it then, right? Can we steal or not?
What do I do with these jewels?
No, I have an answer to that. We can't steal. Like the three of us are not allowed to steal. We will get in trouble.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
It would be crazy if there was like a purge situation, but not violent. You couldn't be, the rules were this. You couldn't be violent. You had to be clever and steal things.
Wait, who judges? Where's the bar of cleverness coming from?
Is it good? Okay, so we'd have to get judges. We would have to get judges to.
This is not the purge at all. The purge has no rules, man.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And also,
I think you're thinking of like Squid Games, but
now we're getting judges.
The crime Olympics, the non-violent crime Olympics is now
the crimey games.
The crimey games. I love it. It would be fun to see how crafty.
You know what? These are called escape rooms, and they're very fun. You should.
Yeah.
I've done quite a few of them.
Yeah. It's just a thought that I had. I mean, like, it might just be a fun business pitch that we might want to venture into in the future.
Should we go to the Sharks?
Yeah.
Should we take it to the Sharks?
Go to the Sharks. Non-violent crimes in the Olympics.
Okay, and what's the product? It's just the show? You just pitched the show to us? That's not what this is. This is I'm out.
All right. Well, I tried.
This episode of Good Work is brought to you in part by The Chief, a New York City-based newspaper focused on municipal government, civil servants, and the important issues affecting New York State and federal employees. Visit thechiefleader.com, where you can subscribe for as little as $2.75 a month.
James Baldwin once wrote, "I am what time, circumstance, and history have made of me, certainly, but I am also much more than that." And that's really why I wanted to start Black on Black. My name is Julian Michael. I'm a comedian, I'm a writer, I'm an educator. I do a lot of things, but really, Black on Black isn't about me. It's about sharing stories of all kinds of people from across the diaspora, and I hope that when you listen, you'll learn something, you'll enjoy, and you'll start a conversation. Check out Black on Black right here on Dragon Wagon Radio.
Welcome back, workers. We are back here today, and we've got a subject we're going to talk about here that I'm very passionate about, and that is socialism. Socialism is a shit ton of different things. Socialism is not a monolith, and we're going to just talk. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, especially in the West, especially in very, very capitalist societies, because of propaganda and being lied to, because there is no threat greater to a capitalist society than socialism. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I'm going to try to tell Jake and Matt here and our audience as much that, in a brief period of time, as much that I know as possible.
Yeah, we talked about this was set up last week, if I'm not mistaken, where when we were trying to define what capitalism was.
Totally.
That there's sort of this big mystery cloud that hovers over the word socialism in America.
Yeah, and we talked about historical materialism and dialectical materialism and the philosophy and evolution of societies.
Right.
Before you start,
yeah.
I just want to say what I think socialism is. It's
Great.
It's long lines for hospitals. Okay.
Great. Okay.
It's bread on the nothing but bread on the shelves,
Great.
but in place of toilet paper. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's evil Cubans. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
false. Those
okay.
aren't my real thoughts. Those are that's the propaganda.
Yeah. That is yeah. Jake, do you have anything you'd like to say about what you think socialism is?
Something to do with the Smurfs. I'm not sure.
Oh shit!
Right. I mean, both of you guys are kind of right.
They're 3 apples high. You know that, right?
Yeah.
There are some, but what kind of apples though? There's some big apples. There's
That's
some
how they.
little apples.
That's their words. That's Smurf words. They always say they're 3 apples high.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I think Fuji apples.
Fuji
Yeah.
apples. Yeah.
Not a golden delicious or not a red delicious. Those are tall.
Those are huge.
Those are tall boys.
So before we get into this though, comedian Bill Burr recently got a question on his show and his podcast that I think kind of like highlights a lot of the things. One of the things that I think either capitalists purposefully or intentionally try to conflate, or people who just don't know the difference try to conflate socialism with capitalism. And well, take a listen here and then we'll give a discussion.
Last week you mentioned you don't know why people demonize socialism. I was really taken aback at that statement. Oh, Jesus Christ. Every country that has tried socialism has failed, and it's responsible for tens of millions of deaths. All right, so would you say capitalism is working? And it is not, when like, what is it, like 99% of the wealth is in like fucking 2% of the people's hands? All of these tent cities, you're telling me this is working? You don't think capitalism is responsible for tens of millions of deaths? Anyway, Russia, Germany, China, Cuba, and most recently Venezuela have tried, or right now are socialist countries. As far as I know, whatever Cuba was trying to do, we prevented them from doing with a fucking embargo or whatever the hell we did. We've been fucking with them for 60 years. So I think you're looking at like what a lot of people do is you look at your own country through rose-colored glasses the same way you look at your own sports team like, oh, my team doesn't cheat, but your team does. You're really sort of looking the other way with what capitalism has done to other countries. All the sweatshop labor, all the wars we've fought in over air quote freedom, where most of it is about, natural resources. All of these fucking countries where we've gone in and, stuck in heads of the government that are going to do what we want to do so we can fucking take advantage of them. Like, I mean, to sit there and look at capitalism like it's, I don't know, dude. But once again, I don't even think you can blame capitalism on that. I think you just can blame sociopathic people that both crave and ascend to positions of power. All right, I took off my Bergenstock, so I'm going to read the rest of this here. Okay, socialism all starts the same way. Create a boogeyman like corporations, the rich, or a race. Oh, yeah, we've never done that in this country. We've never created a boogeyman. There's never, Jesus Christ, buddy. Blame them for all your problems. Yeah, we never did that. The leaders then promised to fix all the problems. Oh, boy. Slowly, the government starts to control every aspect of your life. Why does this sound so familiar? Promise that aren't they like recording all our phone conversations now? We're slowly on our way to getting microchipped. Promise that everybody will have the same equity and outcome. This creates mediocrity, loss of the middle class. Loss of the middle class. Where have I seen that before? Of innovation, corporations are buying houses now. They're just buying them up so they can fucking Airbnb. Like literally the American dream, buying a house. They're going to take that away in this country. That reduces the tax money coming out into the government. This is everything that we're doing too. Anyways, this creates mediocrity, loss of the middle class, loss of innovation. punish the rich, which eventually leads to them leaving the country. Oh, yeah, that hasn't happened. Yeah, the rich haven't, their money leaves the country and then comes back in the form of an interest-free loan that is then forgiven. Jesus, buddy, come on. That reduces tax money coming into the government and loss of jobs because the richest people usually employ the most of the population. Oh, boy. Disarm the citizens so that they cannot revolt. Control the media, like promoting the government. Control the media. There's two guys that own the media, Ted Turner and fucking that other guy there, the guy from Fox News. That's why we're Hatfields and McCoys right now. Disarm the citizens so they cannot revolt. Control the media, like promoting the government agenda with propaganda, then censorship of all their other ideas. Yeah, creating areas where you can only protest, which are down and around the corner, away from the fucking media. Yeah, okay. Eventually, all rights are taken away. Dissenters, journalists, and politicians, oppositions are jailed or executed. Eventually, the leaders will become exactly what they originally campaigned against. Jesus Christ, buddy. He goes, there's much more to it on an economic level, but as a fellow moron, it's too complicated for me to understand. All right. I am also a fellow moron, but dude, all of that shit has happened. If you look at all the rights and everything that you have lost in the last fucking 20 years, I don't even know. I don't even begin in creating a boogeyman and racism, genocide, all of that shit. We've done all of that.
All right. So I just wanted to play that a little bit because I think it's a really interesting way to highlight how little people know about what socialism is, what it does. One of the funniest things there that guy said is that socialists want to take guns away so that citizens can't go up against the government. But that's actually that's a liberal point of view, not a socialist point of view. In fact, socialists are very, very pro-gun. And actually very much disagree with the idea of taking guns away from the population. So what he's talking about, and this is a major thing that I think have confused people, are terms like liberal, the left, and socialism. And I want to break that down a little bit for our audience to maybe understand a little bit better. What did you guys think about everything he was saying, though?
I mean, yeah,
he's so funny.
I love Bill Burr. I think he's very funny.
It's all about the boogeyman, like he said. Create a fictional bad guy, and everything that this listener Burr and this person emailing is stating is the exact thing that occurs under capitalism, and it's the culture politics. It's no different than what you just said, what you were about to get into, James, of the words leftist, liberalism. It's like, all you need to do is say something with some chutzpah to your voice to, you know what I mean? That have you heard about that podcast Good Work? And then all of a sudden Good Work is evil. You know what I mean? All you need to do is speak to your base who already agrees with you about one thing, find a way to villainize something that they are afraid of, and then boom, we have.
And it's so funny that this guy was writing in, or this person was writing in, talking about a boogeyman when it's clear that socialism has been turned into a boogeyman.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Totally. So funny. You didn't even see
that's really funny.
What it's the
irony
of that.
Yeah. I also love that he included it villainizes, it creates boogeymans like the rich, or corporations, and then also brings up racism. And it's well, wait a second. Corporations and the rich are I guess this is just my worldview, but they are in an economic system, they are the people that are your enemies. Those are two different ideas. The rich create the racism so that labor is divided, right? That's, but yeah. Also, I do want to say, there's this, this idea that socialism has killed millions and millions of people. Actually comes from a book called The Black Book of Communism in the early 90s, which was written by a right-wing think tank, a pro-capitalist think tank.
Bound in human flesh. The Black Book of...
The Black Book of Communism. And
also, by the way, the Black Book of Communism just sounds like a book with a lot of attractive people's names in it. for communists.
For communists.
Like, oh, it's my black book of communism.
Oh,
like, these
yeah,
are all the
yeah,
hot,
yeah, these are all
all
my
the hot
my
communists
hot-
I slept with.
Yeah, this is where they're at. Yeah, you want a number? You want a number for some egalitarian good times?
like a little black book, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And like they admitted afterwards to sprucing up the numbers, including one of the things that they added to the millions of people that were killed during socialism were the 23 million Nazi soldiers that were killed in Russia during World War II, as being like
They include that in the that's really
as victims of socialism.
Smudging the numbers there or whatever.
Oh yeah,
cooking
Totally.
the books.
So funny. Okay, cool. So I've been trying to organize my thoughts a little bit of like how I wanted to start this. And so here's how I would like to start. Just kind of talking about this with our audience, and this is just kind of like how I guess I view it through just my own nerdy kind of like research and such. So when you're talking about the left, so like if the right is pro-capitalist and the right, conservatives, Republicans, the right in Europe, they're called different things in terms of the parties and such, Tories in England. They want unfettered capitalism. They were pro-capitalism. They don't want any sort of government intervention or anything like that. They believe that that's the economic system, right? On the left, there's two categories: reformists and revolutionaries, right?
Right.
So reformists believe that the contradictions and damages of capitalism can be controlled through government regulation and oversight. These are called liberals and social democrats, and often are referred to as progressives as well. It focuses on fair wages and inclusivity of, different ethnicities, races, sexual orientations. Basically, inclusive capitalism is kind of the reformist position, right?
Right.
Whether it's true or not, like, I'm not necessarily going to try and put a judgment on it. I'm just going to kind of say like what they are here. And social democracies, which is reformist, are also called welfare capitalist states. These are places like Iceland, Sweden, Finland, Denmark. Basically, the idea is that you use the government, you use the state, you have, you tax the capitalists, and then you provide basic living standards for the workers, right? Decent wages, decent time off, all that sort of stuff. On the other side of left is the revolutionaries. Now, the revolutionaries are socialists, and there's three different kinds, which we'll talk about in a moment. But the revolutionaries basically are anti-capitalist. They don't believe that capitalism can be reformed, tamed, brought in. At its heart, the belief is that capitalism is a exploitative and fucked up system that will always lead to contradictions, that will always hurt a lot of people. That is ultimately what, kind of the revolutionary side of that. That's like, I think, the way to look at leftism in general, right?
Right.
In general, you've got reformists and revolutionaries. So in regards to that, here's what, before we get into like different types of socialism, that sort of thing, here's what socialism is not. Socialism is not when the government does things or pays for things, and it is not high taxes. Socialism is not everyone receiving the same pay. It is not fire departments, police, public schools. It's not being unable to own personal property like homes, cars, and it's not utopian communism. It's never existed before. Utopian communism has never existed before. Anytime somebody's like a communist country,
Right.
that is an oxymoron, because communism is a stateless society, right? So
there is no such, you can't be a country.
No.
If you are communism.
Correct. And so that is, and we'll talk about communism and what is the difference between socialism and communism in a moment. So socialism is essentially an economic system that changes who can own private property. In this case, private property is not personal property. Private property is companies, and LLCs, like that's and really the means of production. So private property and the means of production. In a capitalist system, there's two components. We've talked about this before: labor and capitalists. The capitalists are the owners, labor is the workers. In a socialist system, the owners are eliminated, and the workers instead make the decisions about the company, the industry, and what to do with surplus profits and all that sort of stuff. So really, socialism is a way of distributing the decision-making process within the economy, right? A lot of socialists argue that if you look at America, our government became democratic with elections, but our economy stayed in dictatorships. And you can't have a true democracy if 50% of what is known as the political, like a political economy, if 50% of that is in a dictatorship, then how can we actually have a real democracy?
Right.
And so like that is one of the major contradictions regarding, the way that we look at sort of socialism. So this is like the really, really basic sort of thing here. I'm going to give a little bit of history, and then we're going to talk about three different kinds of socialism. But first, questions, thoughts? Am I making sense so far? I know you guys know this shit probably, but
no. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff I'm not familiar with, but it's the specificity of like all the subterms and the way that we do tend to just say, like the fact that you say socialism isn't the fire department. It isn't because that's what I always think. Oh, that's a socialist program.
No, that is a federal or government program in a capitalist system.
Right. But is it safe to say that that when it comes to what socialism does, that is a reflection of the positives of socialism? Are programs like that?
I think you could say it's a reflection of it. I think you could say it's a reflection of here's where it's slightly, I would say it's slightly socialist in that the purpose of it is not profit driven.
Right.
The fire department is not looking to make a profit. The education system is not looking to make a profit. And so therefore, like that has an element to it that is socialist, although socialist is not anti-profit necessarily. You can make a profit, but it's who gets to decide what to do with it.
Right.
In like a private enterprise. So like, in this case, Jeff Bezos gets to decide what to do with Amazon's surplus profit.
Right.
The workers do not. And in this case, he uses it to go to space.
And listen to our program.
Yeah, and call in. But yeah, I think there's elements to there's so many moving parts to socialism and to any economic system. And I think that people think it's a monolith. It's this one thing. Capitalism is not a monolith. There's so many different kinds of capitalism, right? Like, and I think it's easy to like turn both of them into this one thing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
so,
cool.
But go ahead. I was just going to ask about like the pure versions of these structures, pure versions of communism, pure versions of socialism that people tend to throw to that don't exist, that don't actually exist.
Totally.
Can you give examples of those?
Yeah.
So that pure,
the communist China, for example.
Oh yeah. We are going to talk about that.
Oh, great.
In a moment. Yeah. Totally. And
all of your questions will be answered.
They will all be answered. I do think it's a really important distinction, especially the three different types of socialism, right? And the way that and again, this is just my own studies. I'm sure that there's, this is just the way I view it. I'm sure if there's socialists listening to this, they probably, there's probably different ones that are throwing their communist manifesto in the air and fucking cussing me out. But
Lutheran socialists, Southern Baptist socialists.
So just a really, really brief history here. Socialism as an ideology really started to come to fruition in France around the same time that liberalism started with the Age of Enlightenment. Liberalism, if you're not familiar with liberalism, that's the kind of world that the West lives in today, which is a combination of electoral politics and free market capitalism. When you combine those things together in the Enlightenment age, a lot of philosophers hypothesize
what is this,
that
the Renaissance?
it's actually after the Renaissance.
What year are we talking about?
It was right before the early 1700s.
1700s. Okay.
Yeah, and because it led the Enlightenment led to the French Revolution.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's like, there's so many different like big time philosophers that were a part of the Enlightenment. I think what's that one famous French philosopher? I forget his name. It's always like well, there's John Locke, there's Thomas Hobbes, Descartes is the one I was trying to remember. Right. Kant, K-A-N-T, Isaac Newton.
I know. I see your face, Matt. I see your face. I know what you're gonna do. I
believe it's pronounced.
Thomas Paine was a big one. Like there was a lot of Enlightenment dudes. Thomas Jefferson was like a really big Enlightenment guy, and a part of it was this belief.
Is it all French?
It was European, but
yeah,
French. The French were kind of like the the driving force of it.
Right.
Yeah,
as they are with many things.
Yeah,
cheeses, wines. Noir.
I meant like revolution, but yeah, no.
Oh,
Also cheese.
Cigarettes.
Yeah. Cigarettes.
Frogs.
Yeah. And so, there was this idea so the Enlightenment really brought out this feeling of individualism and getting the individual to be very empowered, right? And so it was kind of this drug that at the time was like really, really popular. It was very idealist thinking versus materialist thinking. And after the Enlightenment and after the French Revolution, feudalism was overthrown and capitalism became the main economic system of Europe and the world, right? At the time, there was this dude, Karl Marx, who was a Hegelian philosopher. We talked about Hegel, dialectical idealism. He was a German philosopher. And Karl Marx was also a British economist and was obsessed with evolution. And so he developed historical materialism to figure out how do societies evolve. And he realized that societies evolve based on who owns the means of production.
Right. Yeah. This is what we touched upon a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Correct. And that he predicted that the next stages of society would be after capitalism would naturally be socialism. And then socialism would eventually lead to communism, which is a moneyless and stateless society. After writing about the labor theory of value in his book Capital, in which he showed how labor and workers were being exploited in a capitalist system, he followed it up with the Communist Manifesto, which during the Industrial Revolutions was very, very popular. It sparked uprisings, a very big, very, very often not talked about mass uprising in Europe in 1849 that kind of mirrored the French Revolution, but it failed miserably. And from there, after that, Marx decided, so at this point also, like socialism is starting to like really become a whole bunch of different things, right? Some people embraced Marxism. Some people started embracing anarchist or libertarian socialism.
So it's the seeds. Like religion, everybody started taking the word,
100%.
taking what it was, and doing. Well, we are part of that, but we're a little different because we think this. So it became a subsect. It started to
exactly
little baby cults. Each one of them
and
is a little
people
cult
taking different. Exactly. And so and one thing, and so Marx decided to stop being a philosopher, an economist, and to try to change Europe. And he knew from his study of societal evolution that societies change when they experience massive contradictions or aneurysms that erupt, causing societies to change, and felt that maybe if he could force aneurysms and contradictions, that he could help speed up the changes of society. He was massively.
The only way your dad is going to stop eating bacon is if we make him have a heart attack.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. Yeah. And I think
So we got to give him a lot of bacon now to save his life later.
Isn't that like the old trope of if like when a parent would catch their kid smoking? So like you're gonna smoke this
the whole
whole
carton.
pack, a whole carton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just killing your child, just by
Yeah.
immediate lung
You
cancer.
just create Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
Totally.
Ray Liotta or somebody who just smoked all of
Humphrey Bogart.
Jantrix, help me.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're like thanks to my mother, I'm never gonna smoke ever again. They taught me a great lesson.
Thanks to my mother, I need to smoke 20 cigarettes at a time to feel anything.
So this is kind of, I mean, like, this is, I'm packing hundreds and hundreds of pages of history into a very brief amount of time. There's so much that's happened here and so many people to contribute, but I'm giving really broad strokes. And he called it like the science of socialism because he believed that he had uncovered a science of society, and like what we know today is sociology. He kind of helped develop that science a little bit, or that, if you want to call it, a social science. But with the idea that it's a science, kind of was taken into the future, because science, as we know, can change because variables change and we learn new things and we discover new things. And so this is kind of like I said, like a really basic history of where we're at. And really it's during this period of enlightenment and right afterwards, so many people were excited by this new philosophy of individualism. And I think that there were groups of people like Marx and the French socialists and the anarchists, and who could clearly see that there were still a lot of contradictions and a lot of people being left out. And in fact, Marx named these people that were left out. He called them the proletariats, who were the basically the industrial workers in the cities of Europe. And he said that, capitalism created what is known as a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie capitalists. And the dictator, he was a believer that every society's authoritarian. There's no such thing as a not authoritarian society.
Right.
And so if that is the case, then the best thing you could do for a society is put the lowest rung of people in charge in order to create a decision-making process in a society that felt equal. So his goal moving forward was to try to create what he called the dictatorship of the proletariat, where the proletariat would be in charge of society, basically.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that and more in next week's episode, especially talking about what we're going to talk about is what we know as authoritarian socialism, which is like Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. We'll also talk about libertarian socialism, which is, anarchism. And then we'll also talk about what is democratic socialism. And the differences between the three is really they all have the same eventual goal, which is workers owning the means of production. But the differences between them are how to get there. And we'll talk about that next. Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. This incredibly enlightening.
Man.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to learning more. Thank you for doing all the research and for all the hard work you put into it, James. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. I like talking about this. And hey, at the very least, I feel like if you're going to make a decision about what economy you want in your society, at least know what they are.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned as much as I assume Matt and I did. If you
Don't assume anything about me.
it's pronounced Kant. For all things good work, check out goodworkpod.com. Goodworkpod.com. There you can find official merchandise, links to our personal social media accounts, as well as at Good Work Pod on Twitter, and our Discord community. The links are all there at goodworkpod.com. The Discord is a fantastic spot where you can chat, chime in, and be a part of the community.
Email us at goodworkpod@gmail.com or call the Good Work voicemail box at 929-256-5151 for any I quit stories, I almost quit stories, why I didn't quit, what you think socialism is, what animal would you train to attack? Like that was one we were doing?
All the things.
I don't know what, just anything.
Anything you want. Also, rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars on a review would be nice. And on Spotify, you can give a rating. No reviews yet on Spotify. Spotify, get with it. But please do all of that. And lastly, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/goodworkpod. That'll do it for this week's show. Looking forward to next week.
Bye. Good work, guys.
Good work, everybody.
Dragon Wagon.